Hi, and welcome back to UTD Under the Hood. My name is Andrew Georgitsis. I am the CEO and co-founder of UTD. Anyways, in this series, hopefully you've been following along, so far we've covered a little bit about our introduction. What is our background? What is my background? What is Jeff's background? So forth. A little bit about our roots and philosophy and what are our 10 covenants and, what is our equipment philosophy, stuff like that. We've even looked at things like the diver, the core. What is the core of this whole thing? And we've even covered things like our education. All right, what is in our educational system? What are our supporting materials, training paths, and so forth? And in the last video, we looked at some of our teaching skills, so to speak. We looked at our foundational skills. And just to recap, one of the things that we talked about in there was the foundational skills as both a student and instructor is the skill of being trim and buoyancy and having the ability to have positioning techniques that you can go forward, backwards, make helicopter turns, use modified frogs, modified flutters, shuffle kicks, so on and so on. So you're learning those foundational skills personally, and then adding on top of those things like what we call personal skills, things like removing and replacing the regulator. We call it basic 6, regulator recoveries and so forth. And then even going to some team skills, but on a foundational level. So team skills such as air sharing, manipulating your valves, we call them valve drills, deploying a surface marker buoy, SMB, running a 5-minute ascent profile from 20 feet, so 6 meters, so going 1 meter per minute or 3 feet per minute to the surface. That's what we mean by the 5-minute ascent profile, and so on. Those all fell under the foundational skills. And even a few others like gas switch, running line, laying line, retrieving line, just a few like that. The critical thing we looked at, if you remember, is that in that foundational class, what we did differently from any of the other major training agencies, whether it be at an open water level or even at a technical level, is that we don't simply teach it as checkboxes. Right? We don't say, okay, remove, replace your regulator, great, you're on your knees, you're overweighted, we don't care, boom, done, finished. We are very detail orientated, and the detail comes out in both our online materials and our videos, but even in a material such as the Student Diver Training Procedure Manual and other materials like that, where we go through very detailed precision. And then when you arrive at your class, you have this dry run. And in the dry run, the instructor goes through it in detail and explains why. Now, if you're not able to do dry runs, or you're not able to have a UTD instructor, you can even do this online. We have the online global preparatory classes for our technical class, for example, where you will see a live dry run conducted by an instructor, by me, and you will actually understand what we mean by dry runs. So you can understand how to go through each and every single step, even through the dry run portion of it. And then, of course, we looked at how we went underwater, and we did it underwater in a demonstrate, illustrate fashion. That's foundational teaching. The instructor demonstrates, you illustrate, they film it, and then they go back and do video debriefings about each of those steps. So that was foundational teaching. Today we're going to look at critical teaching, and that's why I gave you just a recap, because what I really want you to understand is in critical teaching, this is what really sets apart UTD. Is we have developed a way of what we call shadow diving. Shadow diving doesn't mean, hey, follow me, or I'm the instructor, demonstrate, illustrate. Shadow diving is where I am basically in your blind spot. I am nowhere to be seen. I am a shadow. And you, as a team, are going to do everything. From setting up your gear, to doing your equipment checks and your buddy checks and everything else, to getting in the water, to descending and executing the planned dive. And during that execution, we as the instructor are going to give you failures. And those failures are real life failures in which you will solve the problem. Now, I learned this when I was learning to fly airplanes. And Jeff, of course, is the same. He was a flight instructor. I was a flight instructor. We used this type of methodology. And this is why we brought it over to scuba. And this is important because when you are learning to fly an airplane, you're learning that this airplane has lost an engine, you're coming into land, and blah, blah, blah. It is done in a simulator? Well, we're doing the same. We will simulate it. We won't take you to 200 feet and rip your mask off. That just makes no sense. The risk versus the benefit doesn't make sense. If it's done in a controlled environment, where I can control all the conditions, in shallow enough water that it's safe. Now, the judge might argue this, and we can always smile about that, but in the bottom line is you are controlled in a very safe environment. We then perform the skill of removing your mask or failing a valve or whatever it's going to be. And we're going to expect you as a team to resolve the problem. Now, again, couple of caveats here. In critical skill training, number one, it's very procedural as well. And in fact, if you look at our student diver and procedure manual, it is laid out in detail. And the reason we do that is because, again, we want you to completely understand the protocol. So let's look at valve failure, for example. Okay, page 148. Oh, look, left valve on a side mount system. Example, a broken neck O-ring or compromised burstus on the left side bottle. You see how we explain to you why this might happen? Sudden bubbles from the left side. Diver's response, signal attention light. It's not an emergency, not out of the air, just attention. Open all the cylinders. Shut down the isolator. Purge the necklace regulator, because you heard it from your left side. If the bubbles stop, problem resolved. The bubbles don't stop in this case. They continue because, again, it was a valve, it was a neck O-ring failure. It had nothing to do with the first stage. So you can identify the problem. You see the bubbles are still broken. You know it's still blowing, so you disconnect the left side. That bottle is no longer usable. You can now use a different stage, a different bottle, and so forth. The power of the Z system, not here to argue that. Point is, you can now open back up the manifold, and you can now have a full necklace, BC, dry suit, tank, everything. Even so, you've lost one of the cylinders. Again, the power of the Z system. Okay? But the point I'm trying to say here is, you see how detail-oriented it is? And then, of course, it says, what does my teammate do? Well, my teammate needs to, while they're maintaining the line, and blah, 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 blah. And the final step is tidy up and flow checks, and blah, blah, blah. It's all laid out. The point I'm bringing the example is, we've given you the solution. Bam. You can study it, you can practice it mentally, you can be sitting at home with a glass of wine in front of the fireplace, in your gear, your wife thinks you're crazy, I don't care, I used to do it all the time. I'd sit there, drink my wine, and go through all my failures. 1, 2, 3, 4, you think this stuff came to me magically? I wasn't born DIR. All right, just like you, I had to put the time, the work, the effort, I had to really invest. We've talked about that earlier. So I encourage you to do that. So that procedurally, it's route learned. I can even learn it understanding-wise. Okay? And I can even learn it in application, like I can do it all. Awesome. But what critical skill training does is, this is where the correlation part, and this is true learning, my friends. This is the difference between everybody else and us, is when you apply it in the situation, you correlate it. And we do it at a variety of levels. In UTD, we call it level 2, 2+, 3, 3+, 4, and 4+. And depending on your progression as a student, and your instructor literally will often have a matrix of the skills. And as you are doing your dive and they're shadow diving, they go, oh, you know, Bob Smith needs a level 2+ valve failure. And once you can handle level 2+, then the next dive or 2 dives or whatever, and after your video debrief, he goes, oh, or she goes, oh, you need a level 3 left post failure. So not only is so my point is, the protocol and procedure of the left post failure number 7 is exactly the same. It's how we apply it and correlate it in the environment. And that is the instructor's job. They're not just swimming around messing with you. I see so many people talk about, I took this wreck advanced class and we were down on the wreck and my instructor swam up and ripped my mask off and swam off. But I handled it. I had my backup in my pocket and stuck it on, and I'm like, you learned nothing. That is not critical skill training. That's messing with you as the student. Critical skill training is a methodical approach to developing your ability to correlate in steps. Correlation at 2, 2 plus, 3, 3 plus, 4, 4 plus. Let me give you an example. Okay? If I am in a team and we are running line and I'm going to apply a failure, if you are the person holding the reel and I give you this left valve failure that we talk about, the protocol is exactly the same. We consider that to be a 2 plus. Why? Well, because the left valve failure is the 2. It's the critical skill. The plus is because you are doing something with the reel. You have to think to yourself, what is the priority? Who gets the reel? How do I pass my teammate the reel? How do I deal with the valve failure while still being on the line? You know, what do we do with the line? Where does the person that passed the line position themselves? There's a lot of thought process. And you may not be ready for that, because you haven't shown me that you even understand how to do a 2. Well, what's a 2? Well, somebody else is running the line. You're following the line. You're number 2 in the team. You're swimming along. Valve blows up. You signal to your teammate. You turn, you face the line. You start dealing with your valve. Your teammate's there with the reel. You don't have to deal with the line. It's an easier step. See what I'm saying? And so, as a good instructor, as an instructor who spent years becoming a UTD instructor and then becoming a UTD technical instructor or cave instructor, and then having to intern, I understand how to take you through 2, 2 plus, 3, 3 plus, 4, 4 plus, and so on. I don't just swim up and screw with your valves and rip your mask off and go, "Woo, that was cool. I kicked your butts, guys," and then swim off and you go, "What? What did we learn? I just felt like hell." The UTD instructors don't do that. It's very methodical. It's very well planned out. It's very much, you get a 2. You deal with that. You show me you do good. I have a video of it. I can sit down and debrief you and go, "Look, see, yeah, you should have turned to the line. You didn't turn to the line," or "This should have been the protocol. Let's redo it." So I know tomorrow, if you didn't do the protocol correctly at a 2 level, there's no way you're going to be able to do it at 2 plus. So tomorrow when we conduct another dive, we have to go back to a 2 level. I have to go back to Bob and go, "Okay, Bob, so I'm going to give you a 2. So Bob's swimming along and fail his valve on the left. So that way Bob handles it. Now Bob's got the protocol. So I show him on the video. "Well done, Bob. You did a great job. You know, let's move on." And what happens now is I give Bob the reel and make Bob do it while running line. So Bob has a 2 plus. Bob kicks butt. Next dive, let's do a 3, Bob. And I know you guys are like, "Oh, can't wait to hear what's in the 3. Taking copious notes. That way when you come take a class, you know what to expect. So be careful. I'm not going to tell you what a 3 is. And I shouldn't even be telling what a 2 is, or a 2 plus, or whatever. Because the point of these critical skills is not to have you solve the problem. I don't want you, excuse me, that sounds bad. I didn't mean it by not solve the problem. What I mean is, I don't want you to have the answers to the crossword. The reason that you do a crossword or a Sudoku or any one of these puzzles is because you're training your mind to think in a certain way. And as you can do the easy Sudokus, then you can go to the mediums and the hards and so forth. Exactly the same. We are training your mind. And if you just look at the answer sheets, you're missing the point. The point is to train your mind to correlate, to think in a certain way, to apply your skills as a teammate or a chief, as an Indian or a chief, as a teammate, as a scuba diver, your foundational, your level 2, 2 plus, 3, to the current situation. And that's training your mind. That's the critical part. Because once your mind becomes a thinking diver, once you become a thinking diver, then you can resolve and solve these issues. And when new issues arrive that have never been taught in a class, bam, you can do them. You can think about them. You can get your way through them. And diving becomes as easy as pie. You don't even think about it anymore. It's like second nature. Because you've gone through it. And all of a sudden, these big dives are not big dives anymore. 400 foot, 2 hours, you're like, I can do it in my sleep. Why? Because I've trained my mind in that direction. This here, my gang, is what critical skills is all about. And I just see so many bad examples of people who, read some trip report on scuba board or whatever, and then turned around as an instructor and said, oh, I'll do that. And they'll just start throwing failures at students and at no fashion or no rhyme or reason or no, building block method or any of the things we've talked about. They'll just basically screw with the student thinking that's the learning tool. And that's not. Those are the instruments which we use. Gas failures, air shares, no mask, line following in the dark. All these things are the instruments in which we use to achieve correlation. To achieve the ability for the mind to take your route learned skills, your understanding of those skills, even your application of those skills, and really correlate them into the environment, into the situation. And once you can do that, all of a sudden you gain massive situational awareness and diving becomes just easy. And that is the core to UTD. That is what is under the hood. You've been watching all 16 of these or 17 of these. This is the number 18th one. And you finally have the epiphany. That's what it's all about. And it's all about that in everything from our gas management to our weighting to our decompression to all the things in UTD as we create this thinking diver. Anyways, I really hope that you enjoyed this particular one. This one for me is a very special one because it's really core and central to what makes us so vastly different. In the next ones coming up, we're going to go through the equipment. I know it's always exciting to look and see, what's in the bungee and what's this and what that. Those are all the fun sort of applicable, just get you guys excited about the equipment. But in reality, you've now gone through the entire educational system and how this supports everything else that we do. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@unifiedteamdiving.com. And as always, gang, safe diving.